Hi, and welcome back to Postscript. I'm John Petersen from the Arlington Institute, and we come to you once a month or so from Berkeley Springs, our little resort town here in the eastern panhandle of West Virginia. We bring speakers from around the world to a speaker series that's named Berkeley Springs Transition Talks, and the purpose of which is to illuminate and shed light on this extraordinary kind of transition that's happening in this world right now, both in terms of human beings and who they are and what they're becoming, and the emergence of a new world, a dramatically new world that is going to be nothing like the one that's before us. Our guest today is Jim McCarty. Jim is one of the authors of a series of books called The Law of One, and they are channels from an entity called Ra. This is an extraordinary series that over a period of over 3 years and 106 different sessions systematically explored the kind of the history and the structure and the meaning and the progress and progression and the dynamics and the logic and everything of how reality on this planet operates and where we're going and what we're about. And the thing that's particularly of interest to us today is this transition that we're in and where we're going from a previous era into a new era and the kind of changes that that's going to produce and is producing in human beings all the time. So welcome back, Jim. It's nice to have you with us.
Well, I'm glad to be back. Thank you so much, John.
Well, in the first segment, we talked about some of the history, about how you and your associates got together to this extraordinary kind of experience back in the early 80s, and a little bit of the history about how we all, as Ra said, how humanity got here and what the process that we went through. And we were just starting into this talk about how human beings have the experience and the process that we're in during this era, in this third kind of dimension. You didn't use the word dimension, but this third kind of segment that's moving to a fourth kind of era, and so on. And the thing that's interesting to me about this is, and one of the deep kind of truths that I think that I got out of reading these books, is that the notion that you do not progress unless you're presented with some kind of new or different or unusual or obstructive kind of situation that causes you to rise to the occasion to deal with the new thing in your life. And it's kind of like, in practical terms, everybody knows that you can't get a college degree without going to college. And so you have to go put yourself into this different kind of situation, all these things, and in the process you come out somebody different and you learned. But if there wasn't a college and there wasn't any incentive to do that, and you would just stay the same, and there would be, and so every kind of event and everything that comes into our lives, certainly every one of any kind of significance, is all about giving you an opportunity to kind of rise to the occasion and learn how to make the kind of decisions to go forward. So talk a little bit about that, if you will.
Yes, it's fascinating. It was information that was really revealing to us. Ross said basically there are no mistakes. That everything that happens in all of our lives has the chance to teach us lessons that we want to learn, that we have actually taken part in planning before the incarnation. They gave an example. Say an entity wants to learn how not to be defensive in a situation that is very threatening. They may program a situation in which they are, of necessity, having to either die themselves to keep from being defensive, or a loved one is threatened with death, and they have a choice. Either they do not defend and the loved one dies, or they do defend and they don't learn their lesson, but the loved one lives. So people get together and make these plans before the incarnation and have Ross said that most of the learning that happens here for us on this planet and any third density is traumatic in nature because this carries more weight in our total being. It makes a mark that we don't forget. It helps us to learn lessons that are indelibly marked upon our spirit. So a lot of things can happen. Carla programmed for herself.
This is Carla Rueckert.
Carla Rueckert, who was the channel for the raw contact. She had arthritis. And for her whole life long, people tried to heal her of arthritis, thinking, well, if you're a conscious being, you shouldn't have arthritis. But it was chosen by her before the incarnation to keep her from going out into the world and giving her energy everywhere and expending it all everywhere. Instead, she wanted to learn how to meditate, to pray, to contemplate, to be inner directed, and to do exactly what she did in her life. So in that regard, she was successful in that she was able to use the limitations that arthritis provided to do what she eventually did. What she wanted to do very much was to be of service by the means of communication and channeling. And this was able to be accomplished because she had the arthritis.
Yeah. Well, this presents the possibility of looking at the life in the world in a dramatically different kind of way, because instead of seeing problems and issues that come into your life, either personally or in the world more broadly, as things that you got to fight against or that they're wrong or some other, if you saw them as teaching, learning kind of opportunities explicitly, and that they've been presented to you in those kinds of ways, and that it's not yours to fight or to get rid of or something, but to learn how to make the right kind of decisions, hear the little intuitive voice that tells you which way to go or something, then it takes down the stress out of the whole system, because you start to understand that, in a sense, this is an extemporaneous play that has some basic kind of roles that we all have, but you can do, that it doesn't have a hard kind of script, but that you can do whatever you want to, and it's a little like jazz, right? That you always improvise.
Yeah. Well, as Shakespeare said, all the world's a stage.
Yeah.
And we're all actors, and each in our time plays many parts. This isn't the ultimate reality. The problem with most people looking at their life is that they think this is it. This isn't a stage or a step towards something better, but actually it is. This is a learning situation here. This is like a laboratory or a school, and we're learning lessons here. And sometimes, I think there are more people these days that are able to look at what happens to them as being a lesson. They're aware that they are students, and that there are many things that they can learn by going through their daily round of activities and looking at them as something that can teach them something they want to know, that there are no accidents, there really aren't, that everything that happens has a purpose and a reason, and you can learn from any situation. And like Ross said, especially the more traumatic ones really do teach us, because they grab our attention, and we have to look at them carefully, and we have to relate to them intimately, because they're happening to us, it seems. So in those regards, we have ways of learning that are absolutely unprecedented as far as people's point of view in previous years, of looking at life as being something that doesn't teach you as much as it provides you opportunity for gaining money or status or family or friends or the things of this world. We're looking for things beyond this world, things that take us to another world.
Right. It's intriguing, because as is very clearly communicated in the books, is that this third density, what do you call it?
We call it density because it refers to the density of light, but dimension or level of they're all the same thing.
So, but this third density is particularly full of all of these kind of, you call them distortions or something?
Well, Ra used the term distortion not in a pejorative sense, as in it's twisted or mangled or odd looking, but in that it is a movement away from total unity. So everything's a distortion. Everything in the creation is a distortion of unity. Ra said originally, the one creator was just infinity. There was no distortion. But then it decided it wanted to know itself. So it exercised free will. And that was the first distortion. And then it made the creation through love and the galaxies and so forth. And those are all distortions. So distortion.
And so all of these things that come into our life are distortions. which allow us the opportunity to be able to change and to rise to the occasion, to get a degree, you know, to get yourself educated or whatever it is that's learning. Some sources say the whole issue is how do you make the decisions, and the learning comes out of it. But this whole process in this third dimension is that there's a whole lot of them, and so that you can learn very quickly.
Oh, yeah. Ross said that in the third dimension, there is at least 100 times more opportunity to learn. It's 100 times more intensive than any higher density. This is a place where, as I said, the statue is forged in fire, the statue of our being, that which will go forward into the future, into the fourth density and beyond. That this is where it really happens. This is where this rubber meets the road. So this is the place where we learn what is going to eventually become our foundation for the rest of our experience throughout the movement through the succeeding densities back into unity with one Creator. We're all moving on that path back to the Creator.
So this is the kind of the place, the forging place that has the opportunity to make the most progress in the shortest period of time, to allow us to then to transition to the next era or to the next kind of density.
Right.
So talk about how that happens.
Well, if we are able in this density to use our catalyst or the ways of growing.
Oh, talk about what the essential nature is that service to self and service to others.
Right. Well, service to self and service to others are two paths back to the Creator. One is a positive path, service to others. One is negative, service to self. And they are both an illusion as far as the eventual destination, but the service to others has the ability to use the catalyst of every day of learning so that we see love as being the way to respond to whatever situation is in front of us, at least 51% of the time. If we can do it 51% of the time, if our thoughts and intentions and actions can reflect love no matter what's in front of us and what we're going through, that's enough to make it into the fourth density. Now the negative or entities, they are a little different. They do not see each other as being the same as the self, as being the same as the Creator. They see others as that which they shall separate themselves from it, and they shall attempt to control them, enslave them, use their power for their own growth. So they have to be 95% successful in being able to control all others around them in order to make that graduation. Throughout the entire universe, as far as we know, Ross said that 90% of entities in the third density choose the positive path. 10% choose negative. And the negative path will take you through the fourth and the fifth and into the beginning of the sixth density, millions of years of evolution. But it can go no further. Because in the sixth density, you have to be able to see everybody as yourself and as the Creator. That's easy for the positive path. That's the path. That's the way they do it. Yeah. That's the heart of their path. For the negative entity, it's impossible. So then they have to immediately reorient their polarity. They have to be a car battery that changes its polarity, and they become positive. Right. So the negative path is given up. It's abandoned. But so it does go that far.
So this experience is basically about kind of positioning yourself or taking a direction in a spectrum on which one end is service to others and the other one is service to self. Right. And the idea is to try to choose whatever direction that you want to do, and through a series of all the daily kind of decisions that we make and the events that we're confronted with, is to make this love-based kind of decisions increasingly such that you move yourself over toward the service to others, right?
That's exactly right. And the negative entities practice the love of self. And that is the way they progress. But like I said, all of the creation and all of the positive and negative entities have the basic function of giving the Creator more ways of knowing itself, which is seemingly, according to Ra, the basic reason for the creation. So the Creator to know itself.
So the process is, or the big picture, the strategy is that those that kind of concentrate over on the right-hand side, such that they are oriented towards services others, more than 51% of the time, then are part of the group that transitions up to the next level, right?
Right. They can make it to the next level of the fourth density, which is, Ra called it the density of love and understanding. The love, of course, we have some concept of what that is, the compassion that we feel and the caring for other people. But understanding is something that we think we do here in this density, but we don't so much, because there is that veil between the conscious and subconscious mind, so we only begin to grasp the nature of reality. But we get it enough that we can pursue it. We can use our will and our faith to travel this path. But in the fourth density, there are various levels as well. 51% would get you to the lowest level of the fourth density, but you're there.
Yeah, right,
so,
right.
You know, you're through with the third density for a while and all the trauma that's gone through there. So the fourth density apparently takes 30 million years.
Oh, really? Oh, we've got time.
Yeah, there's plenty of time. But as Ross said, the progress that is made in the higher densities, they need that time because they progress there just like they're turtles, and we here back in third density are cheetahs.
Right.
We go lots faster.
Right.
But we're doing this so that we can build the foundation upon which we will stand for the rest of our incarnational experiences through the higher densities.
This is really important. This is cool.
Yes, this is the axis upon which the rest of the creation turns for us by the choice we make.
So how does it talk about the transition? How does the transition happen between third and fourth?
Well, the transition for individuals is going on right now. Ross said it's been going on for the last 82 years, since before World War II. Every person that dies now and goes through what we call the walking into the steps of light is being given the opportunity to make the fourth density. Our various energy centers, or chakras as they call them in the East, are related to certain kinds of experience here on Earth. From individual dealing with ourselves, with dealing with one other self intensively, with dealing with groups, with dealing with everybody, going higher and higher in energy centers. So we have a chance to be gauged as we go through the death process. The light we walk into gauges our energy to see if we can take the light of the fourth density. It's more powerful, it's more potent. So everybody's doing it right now. As a society and as a consciousness, and a planetary consciousness, there will apparently be some point at which this will come to an end, that opportunity will be over. But Ross said it's really hard to tell right now because it is a result of the people's choices as individuals and as groups. And our peoples, our cultures are very volatile. Yeah. It's hard to say which way they're going to go, what's going to happen, when it's going to happen. They said between 100 and 700 years. Now, it started before World War II, so we're already 82 years into it. So it could be at any time.
Right.
But it's something that it'll be determined by the choices that are made on the planet.
Well, there's multiple other kind of unconventional sources that suggest that kind of the leverage point was, the hinge point was 2012, December 2012, and that kind of that we'd made it into this new, in general, made it into this new era, and then the question kind of is how ragged is it going to be and how kind of painful and other kinds of stuff. But what I hear you saying is that in order to get to the fourth density, you have to die. Is that true or not?
Not necessarily. Some people are able to, shall we say, harvest themselves while they're still alive in the third density. These are what you would call the adepts or the masters or the bodhisattvas, those like Jesus, Buddha, Lao Tzu, and so forth.
How many of them are there?
Well, I don't know. But every culture and every religion has had some. Ra said that every culture and religion has got a portion of the law of one, a portion of truth, and all of them have some distortions as well. So each seeker in every religion and culture has to determine for him or herself what they believe, because there's distortion and there's truth. I mean, there is a true path through each religion.
Was there any suggestion that there would be kind of a general kind of transition while folks are alive in this dimension into the fourth dimension, that there would be a change of outlook and perspective, maybe from some other catalytic event or source?
Well, Rod did mention one wild card possibility. They said that every option that you can think of, mostly for Earth right now, is one that is somewhat retarded or long span time period. but that there was one opportunity that contained love, peace, joy, and light, and that to turn one's back upon it was to omit the possibilities of the future. That could your planet polarize in one fine, strong moment of inspiration? Yes, my friends, it is not probable, but it is ever possible.
Yeah.
So it could happen. Things could get bad enough on the planet with us fighting each other that everybody all at once says, why are we doing this? Let's do something else. Let's love each other.
Yeah, right.
Pow, and we're gone.
What about the new generation of kids coming in? Are they see the world in a different way?
Well, Ra mentioned that there was been an incarnation of entities that were from other third density planets that had already made the transition. They were now fourth density planetary entities. And they were coming to Earth early to help with the transition here. And they were going to be part of the fourth density population here. And they were, well, a lot of people have written about them as the indigo children,
Yeah, right.
the crystal children. They, according to Ra, they have both their third density and fourth density bodies activated, so they're doubly activated. And they tend to be more psychic. They tend to have more abilities that most of us don't have.
Oh, yeah, they're wired, their brains are wired. I mean, they parallel process 7 things at the same time. They're quite interesting. And there are now examples of young people who have 3 and 4 strands of DNA that are showing up at different kind of places.
Right. Well, they're here, and they're here to help us. And there are supposedly more and more coming. And so hopefully more and more will come from this
So I'm intrigued about the possibility that some of us who are still alive could make it across into that new space, because you know, a lot of good people who are spending a whole lot of time trying to raise themselves to a new level of consciousness.
And the important thing is the intention, because we don't know exactly what the outcome of any of our actions is going to be. It's not usual for us to see, well, I sowed love here and this is what came from it.
Right.
The important thing is we intend to love people, and we try our best to do that. So I think a lot more people have the opportunity to make this transition, because you don't have to show, you know, the fruits of, well, see what I did over here? I got all this, I got my resume, my love resume here.
Yeah.
It doesn't work that way.
36 points of love, right, whatever it has to be. Well, we just got a couple minutes left here, but I wanted to come back to some wild and crazy thing that showed up early in one of the early interviews. I think the 9th one, you told me that in passing that Ross said that, and this is back in the early 80s, said that the United States had spaceships that were UFO kind of things that we were building in underground facilities in Mexico and New Mexico, and that there were large numbers of them that were already flying, and that was really hard for anybody to believe then, right?
Well, yeah, even Don, who was the questioner, was aghast. He said, are you telling me that these ships are being built in Mexico, out of this country, and in and who knows about them, and why aren't we using them for transport? And could we solve all our problems with the energy that's being devoted to this? And Ross said, yes, you could solve each and every problem that you have on your planet, with hunger, with housing, with medical needs. Every problem could be solved if you put your energies there instead of where they're going now. Ra mentioned this is unimportant information, and they were only giving it because we had asked in this area, and they'd mentioned that there were landings not only of UFOs, but some of the UFOs were from our government.
Yeah.
So they mentioned that this is not important information.
It may be not important, but it's interesting.
It's interesting, it's fascinating, that's for sure, you know, but there is so much more to our life and our purpose. But yeah, we survived that particular episode with getting this.
It's becoming increasingly clear, I guess one could say, from multiple kind of sources, from inside of the system and outside, that in fact all of this may be true, and that in fact that the United States and maybe other countries for that matter have for decades and decades had capabilities that are far exceed anything that a conventional kind of physics understands or describes, and that there's ongoing things going on up in the space that we're just in general not aware of.
Well, you know, it really shouldn't be too surprising, because you look at the military intelligence and their desire to protect the country. They can't tell you everything that's happening. And that, of course, things would be going on that would be secret. And of course, they're going to go forward in their technological abilities. So all of this is things that you would expect, but then when you discover it really happened, you didn't know anything about it, you think, wow, really?
Yeah.
So yeah, but again, where do we put our attention? Where do we put our resources?
Yeah, I understand that.
Should we be doing that, or could we be doing something that would be more helpful to the planet and to our people
Sure.
than trying to protect them from
Yeah, and some of this technology, energy capabilities and so on could be amazing in terms of how it would change the quality of life and facilitate this kind of transition into this new world. So it's been wonderful to kind of chat with you here. We're out of time, I'm sorry to say. But our guest today has been Jim McCarty from LL Research down in Kentucky, and came up here for the weekend to give a talk to us at Transition Talks, our series here in Berkeley Springs, sponsored by the Arlington Institute, and we'd encourage you to come and visit with us and be with us. You can find out more information about that at transitiontalks.org, and we hope you'll come back and you'll visit with us in our next Postscript presentation, which will be next month, and I'm giving the speech and the talk, and so I'm going to have a friend of mine interview me, and so we'll go through this ourselves. But we hope you'll come and be back with us. I'm John Petersen from the Arlington Institute, and this is Postscript.